The galaxy was wide and endless, filled with powerful races and ancient empires. Among them were the Vayari, a species of tall alien warrior women. Feared across many worlds, they had conquered planets, broken armies, and bent kings to their knees. Wherever they went, they mocked and humiliated those they defeated, laughing at weakness, showing no mercy. For years, Earth had lived quietly, far from the wars of the galaxy. Humans built their cities, loved their families, and dreamed of reaching the stars. But to the Vayari, humans were nothing. Weak creatures who lived on a fragile blue world. The warriors believed Earth was soft, a planet of children, not warriors. One day, their giant ships appeared in Earth's orbit, blocking the sun with their size. The sky turned dark as the world watched in shock. The Vayari leader, a towering woman with silver armor and burning red eyes, sent a message across every screen. Her voice was cold, but filled with mockery. Earthmen, show us your warriors. Show us your strength or admit you are only fragile toys. The message spread across every home, every street, and every city. People felt anger, shame, and fear. No one wanted to bow before aliens who mocked them, but no one knew who could stand against them. Even soldiers and generals admitted, how could one human fight a race of giants who crushed armies with ease? The alien women laughed again, their voices echoing across the planet. We offer a challenge, they declared. Send us your strongest. If he survives our trials, Earth will stand as worthy. But if he fails, Earth will bow forever. The world fell into silence. News anchors spoke in worried tones. Leaders whispered behind closed doors, and common people argued in the streets. Some said it was impossible. No one should try. Others said refusing meant slavery and humiliation. Then, in a small town, far from the centers of power, one man stood. He was not a soldier, not a general, not a king. He was a simple man, quiet, strong in spirit but unknown to the world. He listened to the challenge, and something inside him refused to stay silent. He had seen hardship, he had lived through pain, and he knew something the alien warriors did not understand. Humans did not give up. When he told the local council he would accept the challenge, they stared at him in disbelief. Are you mad? One asked, They will crush you in moments. But he only answered, They mock us because they think we are weak. Someone must show them what it means to be human. Word spread quickly, from town to city, from city to nation. People began to whisper his name, though many laughed at first. Why would a simple man without weapons, without an army, stand against warriors who had defeated countless species? But the whispers grew louder, and soon the whole world watched him. He was not a king, not a chosen hero, but he carried something deeper, the stubborn spirit of Earth. At the spaceport, crowds gathered as he prepared to leave. Children waved small flags, women cried, men clenched their fists. The air was filled with fear but also pride. For the first time, Earth had a face to stand before the galaxy. Above, the alien ships waited, their warriors laughing as they saw him. To them, he was small, unworthy, a fragile creature walking into his own doom. But when he lifted his eyes to meet theirs, he did not look away. There was no fear in his gaze, only steady fire. The laughter of the warriors grew louder, but deep inside, a shadow of doubt began to stir. The Vayari leader looked down at him from her towering throne. You dare to stand before us, little man? She asked, her voice like thunder. He answered calmly, his voice steady enough for all to hear. I am human, and I will not bow. The crowd of alien warriors fell into silence for a moment, shocked by the boldness of such a small creature. Then their mocking smiles returned, sharper and colder than before. The trials were waiting, and they would break him piece by piece. But as he stepped forward, the people of Earth watched with wide eyes, hearts beating with hope and fear. The challenge had begun, and for the first time, the galaxy would see what it truly meant to face a human. The Vayari ships moved like shadows across the sky, their engines roaring like storms. Cities fell into silence as people looked upward. Watching the massive silver hulls cut through the clouds, it was no longer just a message from far space. The alien warriors had come down to Earth itself. The largest ship landed outside the capital, crushing the ground with its weight. Dust and fire rose into the air. The earth shook as the massive ramp opened. From within came the sound of boots, heavy, metallic, unearthly. The first warrior woman stepped forward, her armor black as night, her hair braided with silver strands, her eyes glowing with red fire. Behind her came more, each one taller than any human soldier, stronger than any athlete and sharper than any blade. The world watched live as the warrior women marched out, their voices carrying laughter. Is this the world of men who think they are strong? One sneered, her voice dripping with scorn. Where are your warriors? Where are your champions? Do you hide behind walls like frightened children? Their words pierced the hearts of the humans watching. Anger boiled, but fear was stronger. Crowds gathered around the landing site, guarded by soldiers who could do nothing but stand still. The warriors moved like predators, tall and powerful, their steps shaking the ground. Even the bravest men lowered their eyes, unable to meet their gaze, but then, from the edge of the crowd, the chosen man walked forward. No armor covered him. No army followed him. No weapons weighed on his hands. He looked small, fragile, almost invisible before the towering aliens. Yet every step he took was steady, as though no power in the universe could make him bow. The alien leader, taller than the rest, stopped and tilted her head. Her lips curved into a cruel smile as she looked down on him. So this is your warrior? This is the best Earth has to give us? She mocked, her voice echoing across the field. Her soldiers burst into laughter, the sound cruel and thunderous, shaking the hearts of those watching. Still, the man did not falter. He lifted his head, his eyes calm, his voice strong. I came because you called us weak, he said, but you do not understand what strength truly means. The crowd gasped, some in awe, some in fear. The alien warriors paused for a moment, their laughter faltering. This man had no sword, no shield, yet he spoke as if he carried a weapon sharper than steel. The leader's smile returned, colder than before. Very well, she said, raising her hand. If you wish to prove the strength of Earth, you shall face our trials. Her soldiers slammed their spears into the ground, the sound like thunder. A circle was drawn around the man, glowing with alien light. The challenge had officially begun. The first trial was strength. 2 alien warriors carried forward a slab of metal thicker than a car, heavier than any machine. They dropped it before him with a crash that shook the earth. Lift it, one ordered, her voice cruel. Show us your strength, human. The crowd watching through screens around the world held their breath. The man walked forward, his hands bleeding as he gripped the freezing metal. He pulled, muscles straining, bones aching, the weight pressing down like a mountain. The warriors laughed, expecting him to break, to fall. But slowly, inch by inch, he lifted it. His body trembling, his teeth clenched, yet he refused to stop. The crowd roared as he raised it high enough for all to see, before dropping it back to the ground with a crash. The alien warriors stopped laughing. Whispers moved among them. How did he do that? No human should have the strength. But the leader silenced them with a gesture, her red eyes burning with new interest. The second trial was endurance. They threw him into a chamber where the air was thick with fire, heat burning like a furnace. No human should have lasted even minutes, but he stood within it, sweat pouring, skin burning, yet his legs did not bend. Through the heat, he looked at the warriors, his eyes unbroken. The chamber doors opened and he stepped out, staggering, but alive. The alien women grew quiet. The leader frowned, her mocking smile fading just a little. Still, she waved her hand, calling for the third trial. This time, the challenge was survival. They took him to a pit filled with storm winds that tore it, his flesh lightning striking like spears. The ground shook, dust cut his skin, and the air roared with power. The alien women leaned forward, waiting for his scream, waiting for his fall. But he stood, bracing himself against the storm, his body scarred, his spirit unbroken. And when the winds finally died, He was still standing, staring straight at them. The silence that followed was heavy, deeper than any laughter. The crowd of humans watching across the world began to cheer, tears filling their eyes. For the first time they believed he might survive. For the first time the alien warriors looked at each other with doubt. The leader narrowed her eyes, her voice sharper than steel. "You have survived 3 trials," she said. "But strength is not enough, spirit is not enough. We will test you until your body and soul are broken." Her words carried anger, but behind her eyes was something else, something she would never admit. A spark of respect, or perhaps a spark of fear. The man stood in the circle, his body scarred, his breath heavy, but his gaze steady. "I am ready," he said simply. The crowd erupted again, voices rising across the world. The alien warriors no longer laughed. For the first time they began to wonder, what if this man truly could endure what no one else ever had? The alien warriors stood in silence, their mocking laughter gone. They had seen the human survive the impossible, yet they believed the real test was still to come. Strength, true strength, was not only about lifting or surviving, it was about standing against another in battle. Now they would see if the fragile man of Earth could face a warrior of the Vayari. The leader raised her hand, and one of her champions stepped forward. She was taller than the rest, her muscles carved like stone, her armor shining with fire. In her hand she carried a blade longer than the man's entire body, a weapon that had cut through beasts and machines. The crowd of aliens cheered, their voices rising like thunder. "This is no trial of steel and storms," the leader announced. "This is combat, warrior against warrior, Earth against Vayari." The human stepped into the circle, the dust swirling around his feet. He had no weapon, no shield, only his bare hands and his unbroken will. The alien champion laughed, her sharp teeth flashing. "I will break you quickly," she promised, "and the galaxy will see how weak Earth truly is." The fight began with a roar. The alien swung, her blade with speed that split the air, the ground shaking as the strike landed near his feet. Dust flew. The crowd gasped. Yet the human moved, quick as wind, dodging the deadly strike. He had no strength to match her size, no weapon to stop her steel, but he had something else: speed, timing, and the will to survive. She struck again, each blow stronger than thunder. He rolled, ducked, stepped back, each time the blade missing him by inches. His body bled from cuts, his skin burned with pain, but his eyes never wavered. He waited, step after step, for the single moment when her strength would become her weakness. The alien warriors watching grew restless, their cheers faltering. This fragile man was not falling, he was not breaking. Instead, he was moving like water, flowing around every strike, surviving where no other should. Finally, the moment came. The alien champion raised her blade high for one final crushing blow. Her muscles tightened, her stance grew heavy, her body leaned into power. And in that moment the human struck. He rushed forward, his hands grabbing her wrist, his shoulder slamming into her chest. The giant warrior staggered, shock flashing. In her red eyes the crowd roared in disbelief. How could such a small man move a warrior who had broken armies? But he did not stop. His fists rained down on her armored body, each strike weak compared to her size, but sharp, precise, unrelenting. She swung back, striking his ribs, blood spilling from his mouth. Yet he held on, refusing to fall. The fight raged like fire, dust rising around them, each strike echoing across the field. The alien champion grew angrier, her roars shaking the ground, but the human grew steadier, his movements sharper, his will brighter. Every time she knocked him down, he rose. Every time her blade cut him, he healed his courage with fire in his eyes. The warriors watching began to fall silent, their mocking smiles fading. For the first time, they saw a man who refused to bow, who refused to break. The human was not stronger, he was not faster, but he carried something deeper, something they could not understand. At last, the human landed a final strike, not with his fists, not with his strength, but with his spirit. He caught the alien's blade with his bare hands, blood streaming down his fingers, and pushed it aside. With a roar, he struck her chest, sending her stumbling to her knees. The field fell into silence. The alien champion, breathing hard, lowered her blade. Her eyes filled with disbelief. She could kill him. She could rise and strike again, but she did not. Instead, she bowed her head, her voice trembling. "You are no weakling," she said. "You are no child of a fragile world." The crowd of humans watching across the planet erupted in cheers, their voices echoing. Through cities and villages, people cried, shouted, embraced, for they had seen what no one believed possible. Their champion had stood against an alien warrior, and he had not fallen. The Vayari leader frowned, her eyes narrowing as she studied the man. She had mocked Earth. She had laughed at humans, but now something inside her shifted. She saw the blood on his face, the cuts on his body, the fire in his eyes, and she understood, though she would never say it aloud. The strength of humans was not in their size, not in their weapons, but in their refusal to surrender. The man stood tall, his body broken, his hands trembling, yet his spirit unshaken. He looked at the warriors, his voice steady. "Strength is not measured by power alone," he said. "It is measured by how many times you rise after being broken." The words hung heavy in the air. The alien warriors who once laughed now looked at him in silence. The human spirit had shown itself, and even the galaxy's fiercest women could not deny it, but the trials were not over. The leader stepped forward, her eyes burning with new fire. "You have faced strength, but we will test your heart, your soul, your very will to live," she declared. The man nodded, his voice calm. "I am ready." And as the crowd waited, the question burned in every mind. How much more could one human endure before even his spirit broke? The battlefield was still shaking from the clash. The alien champion knelt in the dust, her blade lowered, her breath heavy. The human stood before her, bleeding, scarred, but unbroken. The crowd of warrior women, once filled with laughter, now stared in silence. The sound of their mockery had been replaced by something else: doubt. For the first time since their arrival, the alien warriors did not laugh. Their red eyes followed the fragile man who stood against their strongest. They whispered among themselves, their voices uneasy. "How can this be? He is small. He is weak. Yet he does not fall." Their words carried not just confusion, but a quiet fear. The human wiped blood from his mouth, his chest rising with heavy breaths. He looked at them not with hatred, but with steady calm. "I told you," he said, his voice carrying across the field. "Strength is not only in size, it is in the will to rise again." The silence deepened. Even the leader of the Vayari, who had mocked Earth with her every word, narrowed her eyes. She had laughed at humans, called them soft creatures. Yet now she could not deny what stood before her. This man was proof that Earth carried a spirit stronger than anyone expected. But pride burned in the warriors' hearts. The leader stepped forward, her silver armor gleaming, her voice sharp as steel. "You have survived the first trials. You have endured the blade of my champion. But do not think you have won our respect yet," she declared. "You are still only one man, and your body bleeds like all the rest." She raised her hand, and another challenge was prepared. This time they placed before him a massive hammer, forged from alien steel. Two warriors carried it together, struggling under its weight. They dropped it at his feet with a thunderous crash. "Lift it," the leader commanded, her lips curling into a cold smile. "Lift it if you can." The crowd of humans watching across the world held their breath. The hammer was far heavier than the slab of metal he had raised before. It was designed not just to test muscle but to crush hope. Even the alien warriors expected him to fail. The man looked at the hammer, then at the warriors around him. He bent down, gripping the handle with both hands, his skin tearing against the sharp edges. He pulled, his body straining, his face twisting with pain. For a moment it did not move. The alien warriors smirked, their laughter beginning to rise again, but then, inch by inch, the hammer rose. His arms shook, his back burned, his breath came ragged, yet he did not stop. With one final roar, he raised the hammer above his head, the weight shaking his body. The silence that followed was deafening. The hammer fell to the ground with a crash, dust rising around him, and once more the mockery turned into stunned silence. The alien warriors stared in disbelief. They had laughed at his small frame. They had mocked his fragile flesh, but no laughter came now. No cruel words slipped from their lips, only silence, heavy and sharp. The leader's eyes burned with fury, though behind them something else flickered. Respect. She had thought this man would crawl, break, and beg. But instead, he stood tall, wounded but unyielding. Her voice, for the first time, carried no laughter when she spoke. "You are different from the others we have conquered," she admitted, her tone low. "But strength alone is not enough. Your heart will be tested next." The human raised his head, blood dripping from his chin, his voice calm. "Test what you will, I will not bow." The crowd of humans across Earth erupted with cheers. "Children," shouted his name, women cried, men raised their fists. For the first time they felt hope, not just hope for him, but hope for all of humanity. If one man could stand against giants, maybe Earth was not as weak as the galaxy believed. The alien warriors looked at one another, unease spreading across their ranks. They had fought thousands of species, broken millions of men, but never had they seen such defiance. Never had they seen someone so fragile refuse to fall. Some whispered, in their native tongue, "Perhaps Earth is not what we thought." The leader silenced them with a glare. Her pride would not allow her to admit what her heart already knew, but even she could not bring herself to laugh anymore, But even she could not bring herself to laugh anymore. The mockery that had filled the sky only hours ago was now gone, and in its place was silence, the silence of warriors who had seen something they could not explain. The human stood in the circle, his chest heaving, his body scarred. The dust settled around him and the world watched with wide eyes. He had turned their laughter into silence and silence into doubt. But the trials were far from over. The leader's voice cut through the stillness, sharper than any blade. "You have faced strength, but now we will test your heart. We will see what you truly value and what you will sacrifice to stand." Her words hung heavy in the air. The alien warriors leaned forward, eager to see him break at last. The humans across Earth held their breath, fear rising once again. Would he endure what came next, or would this final test shatter even his spirit? The circle glowed once more, the ground shaking as the next trial prepared to unfold. The man lifted his head, his eyes steady, his voice calm. "I am ready," he whispered. And the silence of the warriors was broken not by laughter, but by the sound of their hearts beginning to doubt their own strength. The air was heavy, filled with the echo of silence. For the first time since their arrival, the alien warrior women had stopped mocking. Their cruel laughter had been replaced by watchful eyes, eyes that studied the man who refused to fall. He had endured their trials of strength, he had survived their storms, he had faced their blades, and still, he stood, bloodied, scarred, yet unbroken. The leader of the Ve'ari stepped forward, her silver armor gleaming under the burning skies. Her voice was sharp, carrying pride and anger, but also something she tried to hide, respect. "You have endured much," she said, "but strength alone does not decide worth. Now we will test what lies within your heart. We will see if the spirit of Earth is as unyielding as your body." At her signal, 2 warriors dragged forward cages. Inside them were frightened animals taken from Earth's forests. Trembling and weak, the alien women sneered. "Save them if you can," one mocked. "Or let them die, for they are nothing." The crowd of humans watching through screens gasped, for this was not a trial of power, but of mercy. The human stepped toward the cages, his breath heavy, his body aching from battle. He bent down, his bleeding hands carefully reaching through the bars to touch the trembling creatures. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. "You are safe now," he said. The animals calmed under his touch, their fear fading at the sound of his words. The crowd fell into silence once more, for even in his pain, he chose compassion. The alien warriors frowned, confused by his actions. To them, compassion was weakness, mercy was a flaw. But here stood a man who carried both strength and kindness. and somehow, it made him appear even stronger. The leader's eyes narrowed, her pride burning. "This proves nothing," she declared. "Mercy is the tool of the weak. Only power decides fate." But the man turned, his voice rising, steady despite his wounds. "You are wrong," he said. "Strength without mercy is nothing. Power without compassion is empty. It is mercy that gives strength meaning." His words echoed across the battlefield, across the screens of Earth, across the hearts of millions watching. People wept, not from fear, but from pride. They saw not just a fighter, but a voice, a symbol of what it meant to be human. The alien warriors shifted uneasily, their mocking silence now mixed with something else, curiosity. The leader, angered, ordered the next test. This time, the warriors brought forward fire pits filled with glowing coals. "Walk through," she commanded. "Prove to us that your spirit does not break under pain." The man looked at the burning path, the flames licking the sky. He knew his body was already broken, his wounds still bleeding, his strength nearly gone. But he also knew this was not only about him, it was about Earth, about every man, woman, and child watching. So he stepped forward, barefoot, onto the burning coals. The fire seared his skin, smoke rising with every step. His body trembled, his teeth clenched, yet his eyes stayed forward. Step by step, he walked through the pit, his flesh burning, his spirit screaming. But he did not stop, he did not fall. The alien warriors watched, wide-eyed. Some turned their faces away, unable to watch his suffering. Others leaned forward, their red eyes flickering with something they had never felt before: respect. When he reached the end of the path, he stumbled but caught himself. His feet were burned, his body shaking, yet his head was still held high. "I endure," he whispered, his voice low but powerful enough to be heard. And in that moment, the silence of the alien warriors was deeper than ever. The leader clenched her fists, fury and conflict battling inside her. She wanted to laugh, she wanted to crush him, but no laughter came. Instead, her voice trembled with anger as she asked, "Why do you keep rising? Why do you not surrender? What drives a fragile creature like you to endure suffering no other would?" The man looked at her, his eyes calm, his voice steady despite the pain. "Because that is what it means to be human," he answered. "On Earth we fall, but we rise again. We suffer, but we fight on. We love, we protect, we endure, no matter the cost." The words struck deeper than any blade. The alien warriors exchanged glances, their mocking pride breaking piece by piece, for they had trained in power, but they had not lived in hardship. They had conquered, but they had not endured. They had laughed at weakness, but now they saw that in weakness there was strength. One of the younger warriors, her armor scratched, her voice trembling, spoke aloud. "Perhaps we were wrong." Her words silenced the others, for never before had a Vayari admitted doubt. The leader glared at her soldier, but inside her own heart, the same thought whispered. This man, this human, had shown them something their armies and blades could not. The human spirit, unyielding, merciful, and unbreakable. The crowd of humans across Earth erupted into cheers, their voices united. Children shouted with joy. Mothers held their children close. Men raised their fists. The world that had once bowed its head in shame now stood tall with pride. For one man had shown the galaxy the heart of humanity. The alien warriors no longer laughed, no longer mocked. Their silence was no longer doubt. It was respect. And the leader herself, though she hid it behind her burning eyes, felt her pride shaking. She had seen countless warriors, but never one like him. The man stood, his body broken, his spirit shining. He had unveiled the truth before them, that true strength was not only in power, but in the spirit that refuses to bow. And as the crowd watched, one question grew louder in every heart. Would the warriors finally bow to the truth, or would they break him with trials even darker than before? The battlefield was no longer filled with cruel laughter. The alien warrior women, once proud and mocking, now stood in silence, their red eyes fixed on the human who would not bow. They had tested his strength, his endurance, his compassion, his spirit, and each time he had risen, he was broken in body but unbroken in soul. and that truth unsettled them more than any weapon ever could. The Vayari leader clenched her fists, her silver armor glowing under the sun. She had come to Earth expecting mockery and easy conquest, but what she had found was something she could not understand. This man, fragile compared to her warriors, had forced them into silence still. Her pride refused to let her admit defeat. "Enough," she shouted, her voice echoing like thunder across the field. "You claim to be strong. You claim that your spirit makes you unbreakable. Then face me." Her words sent a shock through the alien ranks, for the leader herself had never lowered her blade to fight one-on-one against any challenger, but her pride demanded it now. Her fury demanded it. The human stood, his body trembling, his wounds burning, yet his eyes steady. He knew this battle would break him, but he also knew he could not refuse. With a slow breath, he nodded. "I will face you," he said, his voice calm. The crowd of humans watching from across the planet erupted in cries of fear and pride. They feared for him, but they could not look away. The leader stepped into the circle, her blade massive, glowing with alien light. She towered over him, a figure of power and fury. "This ends now," she declared. The duel began. Her blade struck with the force of a storm, cutting the air with fire. The man dodged, his body moving slower than before, his wounds dragging him down, but he still fought. His hands rising, his fists striking where they could. Each blow she gave was enough to crush bone. Yet each time he fell, he rose again, staggering but unyielding. The alien warriors watched in awe. They had seen their leader, cut through beasts twice his size with ease. But this man, scarred and broken, kept rising, his spirit burning brighter with every strike. The duel raged, the ground trembling beneath their feet. Her blade sliced across his arm, blood spilling. Yet he did not cry out. He caught her strike with his bare, bleeding hands, the steel cutting into his flesh. With a roar, he pushed it aside, his eyes locking with hers, and for the first time she faltered. Her strength was greater, her power unmatched, but his will was something she could not crush. Every strike she delivered only revealed more of his fire, more of the human spirit that refused to surrender. The crowd of aliens fell into silence. The humans watching wept, for they saw in him not just a fighter, but a symbol of their entire world. At last he landed a strike. It was not with a weapon, but with his bare fist, a blow that carried not muscle but meaning. It struck her chest, and she stumbled back, her blade lowering. The field fell into silence, every eye fixed on the leader of the Vayari. She breathed heavily, her eyes locked on him. This fragile creature had forced her to step back, forced her to see what she had denied. Her lips trembled, not with anger, but with something far deeper, respect. The leader lowered her blade, her voice quiet but steady. "You are no weakling," she admitted, her words shocking the warriors behind her. "You are no fragile toy of a soft world. You are a warrior." The alien warriors gasped, their eyes wide. Never before had their leader spoken such words to any challenger. Yet now she bowed her head slightly, a gesture of honor among her people. The crowd of humans erupted, their cheers filling the air. Across the world, people cried and shouted, their voices rising in unity. The man had not only survived, he had earned respect from the fiercest warriors in the galaxy. One of the younger alien warriors stepped forward, her voice trembling. "We mocked you. We called you weak. But today, you showed us strength we do not understand." Others nodded, their voices joining. "Respect." One said, "Honor." Another added. The silence had turned into admiration, the mockery into reverence. The human, bleeding and exhausted, stood tall. He did not smile. He did not boast. He simply looked at them, his voice calm. "I am no greater than any other of my kind. I am only human, and that is enough." The leader stared at him, her pride burning, yet her heart moved by his words. She turned to her warriors, her voice sharp. "This man has shown us the strength of his people. We will not mock Earth again. The alien warriors bowed their heads, their voices rising in unison. Respect, they chanted, their words echoing across the field. The man had earned what no one believed possible. The respect of the fiercest warrior race in the galaxy. The humans watching wept with pride. They had seen one of their own stand alone against giants and win not through power, but through spirit. The human spirit had been unveiled, and the warriors had no choice but to honor it. But even as the crowd cheered, the question remained, would respect be enough to protect Earth from what came next? Would the warriors leave in peace, or would the galaxy's pride demand something more? The leader's eyes burned as she looked at him one final time. You have earned our respect, she said, but the galaxy must know of this, and once they do, others will come, greater than us, stronger than us, and you will face them too. Her words were not threat, but warning, and as the man stood there, scarred but unbroken, the future of Earth began to take shape. The battlefield was quiet. The alien warrior women who once laughed with scorn now stood in silence with their heads bowed. The human, bloodied and broken, stood tall before them, his chest rising with heavy breaths. The dust of battle swirled in the air, yet his eyes burned steady, unyielding, unbroken. The Vayari leader lowered her blade, her pride cracked but not shattered. She looked at him with eyes that no longer mocked, but respected. Her voice carried across the field, calm and sharp. You have endured what no other has. You have shown us the strength of Earth. We will not mock you again. The alien warriors raised their hands in salute, their chant echoing, respect, respect, respect. The sound rolled, like thunder, not of cruelty but of honor. And for the first time in their long history, the Vayari bowed their heads to another race. Across Earth, the world erupted in celebration. Crowds filled streets, voices shouted his name, families embraced with tears of pride, children cheered. He is ours, he is human. No longer did Earth feel weak or ashamed. They had found their strength, their spirit, their voice. The man stood silently, his body trembling, his wounds deep. He had not fought for fame nor for glory, but for something greater, to show the galaxy what it meant to be human, and in doing so, he had changed everything. The Vayari leader stepped closer, her towering shadow falling over him. Her voice softened, though her pride still lingered. You have earned our respect, but remember this. The galaxy is vast and others will come, races stronger than us, armies fiercer than ours. They will test you, they will try to break you. The man raised his head, his voice steady. Then we will rise as we always have. Her eyes flickered, and for a moment she smiled, not with mockery, but with something close to admiration. With a signal, the great ships of the Vayari began to rise, their engines shaking the earth one by one. The warrior women boarded, their heads still bowed, their voices still chanting. Respect. The skies cleared as their ships vanished into the stars. The world below breathed again. People embraced, cried, and shouted with joy. For the first time, Earth was not seen as weak. For the first time, Earth had stood before the galaxy and been recognized. But though the warriors had left, their message had already spread. Their ships carried the story across the stars. Other races, other empires, other enemies would hear of the fragile world that had stood against the Vayari. The galaxy, once laughing at Earth, now turned its eyes toward the blue planet with something new. Curiosity, fear, respect. The man returned home quietly. He did not wear a crown. He did not sit on a throne. He walked the same streets he had always walked, greeted by faces filled with tears and pride. To the world he was a hero, but to himself he was only human, and that he knew was enough. Children ran to him, touching his hands, calling him brave. Mothers wept as they thanked him. Fathers bowed their heads with pride. He said little, only smiled softly, his eyes tired, his spirit calm. He had not fought to be worshipped. He had fought to prove what no one else dared to believe. In the nights that followed, he sat beneath the stars, his body scarred, his heart heavy with memory. He looked at the endless sky and whispered, "They will come again, but when they do, we will be ready." And somewhere, across distant worlds, The story of Earth spread. The tale of the fragile man who faced giants. The tale of a human who stood against mockery and turned it into silence. The tale of a spirit that refused to break. Alien leaders whispered in their halls. Earth, they said, a small world with great fire. Warriors across the galaxy spoke of him in their training grounds. He rose again and again, the man who would not bow. The galaxy would remember, not because of weapons, not because of armies, but because one man showed what it meant to be human, a lesson written not in steel but in spirit, a truth carried not by kings, but by the ordinary who rose when no one else would. And as Earth looked to the stars, they no longer saw only danger, they saw hope, they saw strength, for their world had been mocked, but now it was respected. Their name had been scorned, but now it would be remembered. The man stood one last time on the hill overlooking his small town. The wind brushed against his face, carrying the voices of children laughing. He smiled, his body weak, but his heart strong. I am human, he whispered, and that is enough. The stars above burned brighter, as if listening, and far away, in the endless dark, the echo of his story carried on. The galaxy would remember Earth, not as weak, not as broken, but as unyielding. And it all began with one man who chose not to bow.